I spent 90 days grinding against some of Epic 7's best to bring you these 5 tips to help you win more in World Arena. I used these tips to help me get a top 2,000 placing worldwide, and when I didn't follow them, I suffered for it, big time. Tip number 1 is that we should always have a core 2 units that you want to pick. It's really nice to free up your mind to have your 2 core units that you can pick every single time that you're not thinking about. You said, okay, I'm setting my goal, my pace for the match, my goal for the match, and then from there on you can start to adapt to your opponent. But if you start adapting to your opponent, starting from your first 1-2 picks based on if they got first pick potentially, then you're just going to get a little lost in the sauce, and you're going to get lost in the counter pick war. You might end up with a bunch of units that you feel counter the opponent's team or counter their units, but then you don't have a team cohesion, you don't have a game plan, and that makes it a lot easier for your opponent to like find ways to pick your team apart. For example, for me, my core units were Last Rider Crow and Destina. This gives me a lot of benefits. Last Rider Crow is a tank. He's going to absorb damage from my team, but he also has a massive AoE damage, which is going to help supplement my DPS in case I only end up with one other DPS later in the draft. Destina helps me round out against aggressive teams with a full team revive, and if they didn't manage to kill anything, she can bring the whole team basically back to full HP. It's huge. She's also got a bunch of cleanses and a very high ER with a bonus ER for herself, so I'm kind of safe against debuffs as well. So that was my combo. I suggest finding a combo of your own. Tip is, well, if you got your combo, what happens if someone takes your units? What happens if someone bans your units? So the second tip here is maybe a little bit obvious, but you've got to have a backup. You've got to have a game plan for when your opponent takes the units that you like to pick. So for me, a lot of times Last Rider Crow might get picked or banned, taken away from me. My backup here is Arrowell as a knight and Mediator Cowrick as my cleanser. I actually tended to swap completely over to Arrowell and Mediator Cowrick when Last Rider Crow got picked because it gave me a little bit more tempo. So the attack buff from Mediator Cowrick lets me just kind of get a little bit more damage in there because I know that they're going to be playing slow with the Last Rider Crow pick. So my third tip for you, and this is the one that cost me the most personally because I didn't follow it, was you got to have a plan for Cleave. And if you're not familiar with Cleave, it's just these really aggressive teams that are trying to wipe you out on their first turn. They don't want you to have a turn. They want to just crush you right from the get-go. They play really aggressive units that can defense break you, do a ton of damage, like Ran, Dio, Aiden is also very popular. So I did not have a good strategy to combat these guys, and they just ran through me over and over again. And yeah, I suffered a lot for that. Which is why it's tip number 3, you gotta have a plan. In previous seasons when I had a plan, it's like these matches became like 70% or more in my favor. And if I had that going into this season, it could have done potentially even better. So make sure you have a plan against the Cleave players because they're out there, they will find you. We've still got 2 more tips to go, but let's talk about today's sponsor, your health. Let's get outside for a little bit of a walk. So I'm gonna be honest. I wanted to go out and do a little walk today, but it's kind of rainy and stormy outside today, so I'm gonna go find a little wall to do a wall sit on, and we'll get to those tips. All right, got myself a wall. If you care to join me for some wall sits, we'll go over these next tips, see if I can last the whole time. That'd be good. Okay, so this is also a little bit of a bonus tip. This is especially important the last day to take some breaks, get out moving, take a little walk for instance, maybe do some wall sits like I'm doing right now, maybe do some push-ups, just get the blood pumping. It'll help your brain out a little bit, you know, give you a little break. Because sometimes if you just grind, then you just get into like this weird zone and you gotta snap out of it, take a break. It'll do you some good. I should have taken a break. I gained a little bit too much. So the 4th tip is going to be that you gotta have a tilt alarm, which kind of ties into this last one, right? Like there's many times where I got tilted, like you lose 3 games in a row, you lose 4 games in a row, you lose 5 games in a row, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing like crazy. And you you gotta be able to figure out when that's happening and just take a break. Like I said, we'll take a walk, get a snack, actually tie into the snacks. Like your brain runs on a lot of sugar, so maybe get a little bit of sugar, some gummies, something like that. Take a break. You gotta find out when to stop. It's really easy to do this when it's not the final day, because you can say, you know what, I've been losing a lot today, let's take a break, come back tomorrow. Oh my God, I'm dying. What was the last tip? I don't even remember anymore. Cleave, okay, tilt, okay, comps. We gotta have team comps, my guys. If the opponent's playing a certain comp, if they play units, you gotta counter them with a comp of your own. That is a much more effective way. Use your units to cover your other units. The most common one that I see is Last Rider Crow plus Spectre Tenebria, because Last Rider Crow prevents them or dissuades them from doing AoEs because he gets recharged on his S3. Stemi has to get AoE because she's always in stealth. Okay, that's enough of that. But you get what I'm saying, right? Use comps to your advantage, cover the weaknesses of your units when you're picking them. You get to pick 2 units at a time. You might as well use 2 that synergize together or cover each other's weaknesses. If you want to see how I ended up doing overall in this season, how it went for me, check out this video.